this part of the video, we're going to look at Agile Manifesto, which are the 4 values that were actually written in 2003, and they are still radical today. We are still using them today. So let us go through the Agile Manifesto. So the Agile Manifesto actually is focused on 4 values of Agile, and we are going to go through them one by one in this specific video. So the first one is the individuals and iterations over processes and tools. So what you are seeing to the right of the screen is what is normally used for predictive. So it's just like a comparison. So instead of having individuals and interactions, processes and tools, they are normally done for predictive. For Agile, we use individuals and also interactions. Then we also have working software over comprehensive documentation. This is quite important. You're focusing more on value than documentation in an Agile environment. So instead of focusing on documenting thoroughly what the software is going to look like, as an example, you are focusing more on something that is working. And you could be thinking that this is only related to software environment. No, it can be used for anything else. Instead of focusing on documentation, focusing on something that is working. Then the third item is also customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So this value is very important also. You want to involve your customers all the way from the beginning up to the end. And you want to get as much feedback as possible from the customer as compared to predictive, where you have to wait all the way up to the end for you to demonstrate something to the customer. So the customer is collaborating. Remember, we have in an agile methodology, we have the sprint review meeting. This is when you invite the customers to confirm and accept either the increments from the sprint or even the completed product from the sprint. So customer collaboration is more important than negotiation. What do you mean by negotiation? In a predictive environment, in most cases, the customers, they bring in requirements. You start to negotiate whether these requirements should be done now or later, or is it a change request that has got some cost implications? You negotiate on the costs and so on and so forth. But in an Agile environment, you're involving the customers from the beginning all the way. And therefore, most likely, because the requirements or the changes, they're accepted until the last minute, you have your customers being involved in terms of their requirements, which one is more valuable than the other, which one is less risky than the other one, and so on and so forth. So customer collaboration over contract negotiation is very important. Then you also have responding to change over following a plan. This is one of the values in the manifesto for Agile. You are focusing more on giving value than following a plan. So how do you do that? If there is a change which the customer thinks is going to give better and more value as compared to what is in the product backlog, that change is accepted. But when it comes to predictive, you are following a certain plan. If there's a change which is coming in, it has to go through the change control process. So that is one of the values which is also very, very important in an Agile setup. So in a nutshell, we summarize as follows. We have individuals and interactions as compared to processes and tools. Then we have working software as compared to comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration as compared to contract negotiation. Then we also have responding to change over following a plan. So those are the 4 values of an Agile manifesto that you must understand and appreciate. So let us quickly go through and understand each value and what it actually really means. So when it comes to individuals and interactions over processes and tools, so what it means is communication between people is more valuable than a rigid process. So you want people to communicate more than a rigid process. And the tool that prevents conversations is working against you. So in most cases, for example, you might have a 5-minute face-to-face conversation. It might beat a 3-day ticketing queue every time. So individual interaction is also communication becomes very easy. Then working software over comprehensive documentation. What it means is proof is in the product. You have something that works, whether it's prototype or MVP, but at least you have something that you can demonstrate to your users. Then documentation that also helps no one builds or use the product is the worst. So I've seen, especially when it comes to predictive project methodology, you find people, they spend so many months, even weeks, doing a lot of documentation instead of working on a working software. So you want that to just have create just in time and also just enough for that. For example, you have a working prototype reviewed by the customer that tells you more than a 200-page document. This is quite important. If you are able to produce a prototype, you give to the customer, they have a look at it, they give you feedback. Then to try to document the customer requirements in a 50-page document. That's the difference, and that is what is being valued in the Agile Manifesto. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So what it means is, contracts, they define flaws, okay? They don't build great products. So ongoing collaboration discovers what the customer actually needs. So the customer is able to describe what exactly do they need, so that you don't misunderstand what is normally called the gulf of evaluation. You don't misunderstand what the customer is actually talking about. So if they're collaborating throughout the project, it makes sense than for someone to focus more on the contract instead of on the results. So an example of this is weekly demos with the product owner to replace quarterly requirement sign-offs. Sign-offs, you normally find them in the predictive environment. Then you have also responding to change over following a plan. So what does it mean? It means new learning is information, not failure. So plans are tools for coordination when it really changes the plan too also. So what does it mean? It means you are accepting change up to the last minute instead of following a plan. A plan might be followed, but you find that there are certain changes which might come throughout the project that produce more value than to have them go through the change request. So in an agile environment, this kind of changes, you also accept them even up to the last minute before you make your release to production. So an example of this is a mid-sprint pivot based on user feedback. Is success and not deviation. So normally user feedback, you get it during the sprint review meeting. And that feedback might be more valuable in terms of what you are working on in the project. And therefore what is expected is you accept that change, and then the user becomes happy because what they considered valuable is now available to them. So in this section of the video, we're going to cover the 12 principles or 12 Agile principles. We need to understand them. So let us go through them one by one. So they're actually grouped into 4 themes: the customer, team, quality, and also improvement. So let us start with the customer and delivery. The principle for customer and delivery, the first one is we need to satisfy customer through early and continuous delivery. Remember, Agile is value driven. So the moment you start giving value to the customer, they become satisfied. Then principle number 2 is you have to welcome changing requirements even late. It's a competitive advantage. In an Agile environment, you accept changes up to the last minute. How are changes coming in? Changes can come in through the product owner. The product owner is going to accept or reject some changes. Assuming the change has been accepted, the product owner will edit into the product backlog and also refine the product backlog, prioritize the product backlog to make sure that the most valuable features, they're actually done earlier than the less valuable features. Then it also, as part of the principle, you also have to deliver working products frequently and also weeks or not months. So one of the principles of Agile methodology is you want to produce something that is a working product frequently, which means as you do the increments, the product is already working, but you put the increments to add more features, to add more user stories. Then the 4th principle is working product is the primary feature or primary measure of progress. What does that mean? In a predictive environment, you wait all the way until everything is delivered, then you give it to the customer. But in an Agile environment, you are giving the customer something that is workable, minimum viable product. Then you put increments in terms of features to that product. That also gives some confidence level into the customers and any other stakeholder in that project that we're in the right direction, and definitely you're going to receive those benefits. So it's quite important that you also have a working product. Then the second category, which we are going to look at, is the team and communication. So the 5th principle we are looking at is business and delivery teams collaborate daily throughout the project. So to expand on this principle is, in an agile environment, you normally have daily meetings. And that's what I normally follow. So when you have a daily meeting, you are involved in also the customer, you're involved in also the development team. You're agreeing on what was done yesterday, you're agreeing on what you are doing today, and you are removing impediments. Impediments could be coming from the customer side, or it could be coming from another stakeholder outside the project, or even from the development team. So that collaboration is continuous throughout the project. You also build around motivated people, give them support and trust. So this is the sixth principle. What it means is a facilitator or agile project manager or Scrum Master, you are actually allowing the team to be self-organizing, allow the team to decide what can be done, what needs to be done, and how they are going to do it. Allow the team to plan how to do it. You facilitate the planning. You facilitate if there are any conflicts or disagreements. You facilitate to come up with a solution. So the team must be motivated. You should always be motivating your team in an agile environment. Then face-to-face conversations is the most effective method. I can tell you whether you're doing predictive or agile, from my experience, face-to-face conversations are more effective than sending an email. They are more effective than sharing a document somewhere or putting a document in a SharePoint. Face-to-face gives you also the opportunity to use what is called emotional intelligence, to look at what is called emotional intelligence. You are trying to understand if people are appreciating what you are saying. So face-to-face is very important in an agile environment. Unless it's something that is not applicable, but where it's applicable, always try to have a face-to-face discussion in an agile environment. Then the eighth principle is agile supports a sustainable and constant pace indefinitely. Due to sprints, customer collaboration, meetings, retrospective meetings, it makes it very easy to sustain a certain rhythm in an agile environment, which means when you are able to understand your velocity, how many points you can deliver in a sprint, it becomes very easy that for each and every sprint backlog, you have certain items you're delivering as increments to the product. So that is what we mean that it has to be sustainable and constant pace. Then the next one we have is continuous attention to technical excellence enhances agility. So during the retrospective meeting, you have continuous assessment also on the technical excellence. You are looking at what works well, what doesn't work well. You are also looking at the do's and don'ts. So that is also very, very important. And this is under quality and simplicity category.